Good day, children. Today we'll do the first lesson from the textbook First Flight. The lesson is titled A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. Gregorio Lopez Fuentes is a Mexican novelist, poet, and journalist, and he was one of the leading chroniclers of the Mexican Revolution. About him, he spent a lot of his youth in his father's general store, and so when he came in contact with the Indians and the farmers and the laborers of the region, he started getting inspired for his writing. So, after unsuccessful efforts at poetry and novels, he began to draw upon his experiences in the Mexican Revolution. Thus, later on, he became a teacher of literature at a school in Mexico City, and he received the National Prize of Arts and Sciences in 1935. The lesson, A Letter to God, is about the farmer called Lencho and his faith in God. So let's move on to the lesson. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height, one could see the river and the field of ripe corn, dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour, or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. So here, crest means top of a hill, and dotted, corn dotted with flowers means corn full of flowers. Downpour is referring to the heavy rain, and intimately means very closely. So Lencho, the farmer, he lived in the uli house that was situated on the top of a hill, and this hill was a low heighted one. So from there you could actually see the river, the ready to harvest corn fields, and the field belonged to Lencho, and he had the utmost confidence that his harvest would reap great profits. So the only thing that he was awaiting for was a good rainfall. For in this hope, he spent an entire morning gazing at the sky towards the northeast direction, from where a drizzle was expected to shower on his field. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. The woman who was preparing supper replied, Yes, God willing. The older boys were working in the field, while the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called to them all, Come for dinner. It was during the meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went out for no other reason than to have the pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. And when he returned, he exclaimed, These aren't raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives. So, here exclaimed means cry out suddenly in surprise with a strong emotion. So the man, Lencho, while looking at the sky, he confidently tells his wife that they're going to have a rain, a good shower of rain. And to which the lady replies by saying that, only if everything happens as they hope and expect with God's grace. And their elder children were working at the field and the younger ones were playing near the house when Lencho's wife calls everyone for dinner. And it was during that time big drops of rain began to fall, thereby proving the farmer's prediction to be true. And the wind was very pleasant and the clouds could be seen approaching from the northeast sky. So Lencho went out of the house to take pleasure in feeling the droplets on his body. And he refers to this drizzle as coins. That is, the large droplets, he compares it to the 10 cents coins and the smaller ones to 5-cent coins. He is saying that because these raindrops would definitely ensure a good crop, which would eventually get them a lot of money. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain very large hailstones began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. So, regarded means consider or think of in a particular way. Draped means adorn, cover, or wrap something or someone. Hailstones are small pellets of hail. Resemble means to look like, to have a similar appearance or qualities. Exposing is to reveal. So, on seeing everything go as expected, Lencho reflected upon the field and the flowers covered with droplets which looked as if they were wrapped in a curtain. But unexpectedly, a strong wind started blowing, leading to a hailstorm. And quite satirically, we can say that the writer refers to these pellets of frozen rain as new silver coins. The innocent boys became playful and went out in the rain to play and collect these hailstones which looked like frozen pearls. "It's really getting bad now," exclaimed the man. "I hope it passes quickly." It did not pass quickly. For another hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. So the farmer now starts worrying and hopes that the storm gets over quickly. But unfortunately, to his utmost disappointment, it didn't. And the hailstones covered the entire valley, including the house, the garden, the hillside, even the cornfield. And it made everything look so white that it looked as if, the whole place was covered in salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn." That night was a sorrowful one. "All our work for nothing. There's no one who can help us. We'll all go hungry this year." Plague means it's a destructively numerous inflow or a multiplication of a harmful animal infestation. Locusts are insects which fly in big swarms and they destroy crops. So Lencho became stressed and disappointed because everything went against his plan, and the trees had shed their leaves and the corns were smashed and the flowers had also fallen from their plants. So while standing in the withered fields, he conveyed his dismay and sorrow to his sons by commenting that the effect of the storm proved to be much worse than that of the crop being destroyed by insects. So all their hard work had gone in vain, and he felt helpless as no corn had been left and feared that they might have to starve this time, that too for an entire year. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. Don't be so upset even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say. No one dies of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, sees everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. Lencho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. Solitary means existing alone or lonely. So even after everything had gone southwards, which means everything had gone wrong, the family still had hope in their hearts. They had faith in the Almighty, even though nothing was left behind. So they gave each other support and recalled a saying which assures that, no one ever dies of starvation. So Lencho spent his entire night thinking of the only option left, and that was to seek the help of God, who he had been informed, has its eyes and ears everywhere. So conscience means an inner sense of right and wrong, and ox of a man refers to hardworking. So he thought of writing a letter to God conveying his grievances, his problems. And despite spending all these years working at the farm, he still knew how to write. He started writing on Sunday morning and thought of mailing it himself by going to the town. "God," he wrote, "if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes, because the hailstorm." He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled went to town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. So, in his letter to God, he communicated his poverty stricken situation and mentioned that he needed 100 pesos to regenerate the crops along with survival, until they were ready for harvest. So, pesos are basically the basic monetary unit of Mexico and even other few other Latin American countries and also in Philippines. So, something like our Indian rupee. Okay, so pesos is the monetary unit, basic monetary unit in Mexico. He wrote this letter communicating about his poverty, and on the letter, he, however, wrote to God at the post office. He placed the stamp on the letter and he dropped it in the mailbox. So, we'll stop here with part 1 of the lesson, A Letter to God. We'll continue in the next part. Thank you, children.